Today in the Daily Dose, Billy Ralston and the Bonanza Kings. Born in Wellview, Ohio, on January the 12th, 1826, into a successful multi-generational family of grain-hauling keelboat captains on the Ohio River, William Chapman Ralston first honed his piloting skills under his father's watchful eye. But after his father's business collapsed in 1842, Ralston left home at age 16. Catching the attention of Captain Cornelius Garrison, Ralston hired on as a clerk on the riverboat Constitution, where he learned the ways of maritime navigation and high society living in St. Louis, Memphis, and New Orleans, thanks to Garrison's devoted mentorship. With the California gold rush now in full swing, Garrison formed a partnership to develop passenger and freight service between Panama and San Francisco. And when their 1,100-foot steamer New Orleans limped into Panama with engine troubles and a captain in the final throes of terminal syphilis, Garrison appealed to Ralston to take some 200 paid 49ers to San Francisco. Despite his lack of experience as a seagoing boat captain, Ralston felt equal to the task, since he had studied the sea for years now and understood its moods. Never once leaving the bridge during his voyage up the Pacific coast, when he set his eyes upon San Francisco, he knew it was love at first sight. After Garrison accepted a lucrative job with industrialist Cornelius Vanderbilt's shipping line, Ralston soon joined the firm and established their San Francisco headquarters on Sacramento Street. There, Ralston had become agent to a fleet of magnificent ships, including the Yankee Blade, which was to become his early undoing. The Blade was touted as the newest and fastest sailing ship on the coast, and with increasing competition from all quarters, speed in the age of clipper ships had become of paramount importance for any passage to and from the coast. Arriving at the Jackson Street Pier before the Blade's departure on its maiden voyage, Ralston pressured Captain Henry Randall to push his vessel and crew to the limits for a record speed, which would establish the Blade's supremacy and reputation within the clipper ship trade. She was loaded with 800 passengers and $153,000 in gold bullion. Only Ralston failed to take her precious cargo into consideration when he pushed his captain beyond the limits of rational and prudent navigation. Because of this youthful omission, the Blade had piled up on a hidden reef off Point Arguello, costing the lives of 300 men, women, and children, as well as a fortune in sunken bullion. Such a tragic loss of life and assets would undo most average men, but Ralston's genial nature and fearsome ambition allowed him to rise past his early failure and turn his luck around in a dramatic, almost superhuman fashion. In San Francisco, Ralston discovered a boomtown lacking infrastructure, lawfulness, and stable commerce. Partnering with Garrison and Vanderbilt, Ralston used his early profits from their soon thriving enterprise to team up with his womanizing business partner William Sharon, who in turn made immense fortunes together, buying up ownership positions in many silver mines on the Comstock silver lode in and around Virginia City, Nevada, infusing their millions into California-based companies created and managed by Ralston himself. The duo also started the Bank of California, which ultimately grew into the largest banking institution west of St. Louis, which in turn prompted San Franciscans to nickname the dashing socialite the Magician of San Francisco. Considered a key figure in the early growth of San Francisco during the Gilded Age, Ralston's many companies included the Pacific and Mission Woolen Mills of San Francisco, the Kimball Railroad Car Manufacturing Company, the Spring Valley Water Company, tobacco farms near Gilroy, California, the Cornell Watch Company, a railroad into the Comstock Silver Lode, the Union Pacific Silk Manufacturing Company, the New Montgomery Real Estate Company, which dramatically extended the footprint of San Francisco by reclaiming marshland south of Market Street. He also started charitable philanthropic organizations to assist the downtrodden, at the same time becoming a beloved icon of the city for his ability to loan money to ordinary people based on nothing more than a man's good word. Ralston furthered his legendary status among San Franciscans when he started racing the San Jose Railroad's southbound train from the Valencia station in San Francisco to the Blossom Hill station in Belmont, in what journalists soon coined the Belmont Dash. Of Ralston's stable of nearly 100 horses, only his finest specimens were hand-selected for the 22-mile race for Belmont. He would change teams twice during each race, first at Uncle Tom's Station, followed by a second change near San Mateo, before the wide-open flats that led to the finish line. Wealthy Bay Area socialites such as the Sunderlands, the Hopkins, the Stanfords, the Mills, and the Haywards would attire themselves like desert Bedouins against the dust created by Ralston's mad dash for Belmont, prompting Leland Stanford to once challenge Ralston, "For the love of Christ, Toppy, why do you feel the need to race a bloody train?" Ralston is said to have turned around on his carriage perch to look at Stanford seated inside the carriage and say, "That's rather funny coming from a man whose entire fortune revolves around trains." The race was on when the train left Valencia Street Station, and while the much faster steam locomotive would leave Ralston's coach and four behind on straightaways, Ralston would make it back during sharp turns and station stops to deliver or onboard new passengers. Station after station saw the race change hands: Bernal Heights, Visitation Valley, Larkspur Landing, Palo Alto, and Mountain View. Slow-moving passengers generally handed victory to Ralston, while on other instances, anxious conductors aboard the train would hustle people along in the spirit of competition, making obliging or restive passengers the fine line between victory or defeat. Despite the result of each Belmont dash, Ralston's passengers always arrived at Ralston Hall, shrouded in dust from head to toe. Known for throwing lavish parties at his Nob Hill mansion or his 55,000-square-foot summer mansion in Belmont, the press soon coined these socialite gatherings Ralston Nights, both for the celebrities in attendance and the outrageous extravagance of each event. A robust, strapping man, Ralston swam in the icy waters of San Francisco Bay on a near daily basis, and when the Big Four ran low on money while laying tracks through the slow and treacherous Sierra Nevada mountains, Ralston loaned Leland Stanford $100,000, nearly $4 million in today's currency, to tide the Big Four over to the next federal payout for their part in the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad. In return, Stanford promised Ralston that no competitive goods would enter Western markets upon the completion of the cross-country railroad. And when Stanford ultimately reneged on that promise, combined with his own financial overreach, Ralston's many companies suffered greatly when competitive products from back east flooded Western markets. During the gold rush of 1849, only the hardiest of men crossed a rugged nation for untold riches awaiting them in California. When silver was discovered in current-day Virginia City, Nevada, only the hardiest of the 49ers made their way over the rugged terrain of the Sierra Nevada mountains in the hope of striking it rich yet again. While Ralston and Sharon became the early dominant mine owners in the region, they would soon be unseated by four uneducated Irishmen who would collectively become known as the Bonanza Kings. Virginia City, during the height of the Comstock silver lode, defined the mythology of the American Wild West on a near 24/7 basis, as well-paid miners worked in 3 shifts a day in the region's abundant silver mines. On C Street, one heard drunken hoots and laughter from the Strip's many saloons, along with drunken arguments and the occasional tack-tack-tack of gunfire. There was the smell of beer and whiskey, horse manure and sweat. There were the dance halls and restaurants, every doorway spilling forth with the sounds of mostly men at play. Immense mule teams pulled ore wagons between the mines and the stamp mills, creating mammoth traffic jams that persisted both day and night. There were the prairie schooners filled with merchandise, adding to the gridlock of an out-of-control upstart city. Over the endless party din of C Street, came the steady chug of 100 steam engines thundering across Mount Davidson, each one dedicated to a single hoisting gallows or a water pump perched atop more mine shafts than a man could easily count. Virginia City embodied endless amounts of industry, a ballet of ceaseless motion and purpose on a scale that uneducated Irish immigrants like John Mackey and James Fair had never experienced back in their hometown of Dublin. While Mackey and Fair worked shoulder to shoulder with their miners, they partnered with San Francisco bartenders James Flood and William O'Brien, who opened their bar, the Auction Lunch Saloon, by pure Irish luck next to the San Francisco Mining Exchange, where they captured insider knowledge about the future health or failure of various Virginia City silver mines when the traders came in for lunch. Despite this unlikely partnership, after the Consolidated Virginia Silver Mine exhausted what was commonly thought to be its last ounce of silver, Fair was convinced that the true mother lode of the Comstock lay much deeper than Virginia City mine owners had plumbed. While Fair and Mackey started digging deeper in the Con Virginia, as it was known, the bartenders quietly began buying up shares of Con Virginia stock as share prices plummeted from over $1,000 a share to under $50. Once the four Irishmen owned the lion's share of Con Virginia stock, they unearthed the largest single silver strike in world mining history, making the four immigrants some of the wealthiest men in the world. James Fair would go on to become a senator for the state of Nevada, unseating William Sharon as the two spent their millions to vie for power. Fair's wife would later divorce him on grounds of habitual adultery. He died at age 63, igniting a huge public scandal when his will mysteriously disappeared from the county clerk's office before any of his surviving children could read its contents. Soft-spoken and mild-mannered, William O'Brien became known as the Jolly Millionaire, freely confessing that he had neither taste nor talent for making money, prompting him to attribute his puzzling rise to affluence as an act of grasping onto rapidly ascending kites and simply holding on for dear life. After his death at age 52, a veritable conga line of women claimed to be the dead millionaire's wife, clogging the court system as they lay claims upon his estate. James Flood would go on to build ever larger mansions around Northern California, including his Nob Hill home comprised of 42 rooms. Odd as it may seem, it was not the house itself that enthralled the citizens of San Francisco, but the block-long fence that surrounded the property. Known today as Flood's Brass Rail, its wealthy landlord employed a man full-time to polish the brass in much the same way as Flood had once maintained his rail at the Auction Lunch Saloon. While John Mackey preferred a simple life in San Francisco, his socially climbing wife set up lavish homes in London and Paris. Marie Mackey solidified her entrance into Parisian society by hosting a party for Ulysses S. Grant while the ex-Civil War general was on his post-presidency world diplomacy tour. To further her growing fame, Ludovic Halévy, a popular French novelist, published L'Abbé Constantine, a book about a fabulously rich American woman who tires of her life in Paris and moves to a rural mansion. The book became a mainstay for young Americans learning French, and the main character, Madame Scott, was clearly drawn from that of Marie Mackey. After the Silver Kings trumped Ralston and Sharon on their secretive capture of the Con Virginia, Ralston's years of rise began to fall, due mainly to his overreach that in turn overextended his Bank of California. During this period of creeping decline, Ralston and Sharon began building the Palace Hotel as the premier hotel of San Francisco, and when Ralston's construction estimates climbed from $1 million to $5 million, some $180 million in today's currency, the wheels began to fall off his once thriving empire. Ralston's final fall from magician status became complete when a run on his bank forced him to suspend. The next day, after his board of directors forced his resignation, Ralston signed all his assets over to Sharon, who would later settle Ralston's debts, for a greed-inspired profit of many millions of dollars. Departing his once grand bank on an unusually hot day on August 27, 1875, Ralston ran into his physician on the street, who told the fallen tycoon that he looked unusually pale and sweaty. Feeling oddly elated, like a schoolboy released for the summer, Ralston waved off his doctor's concerns, heading to his swim club, where he swam out toward Alcatraz Island and drowned. Whether his death was caused by heart attack, stroke, or suicide, history will never know. Yet news of his death sent shockwaves throughout the West Coast and beyond. So beloved by San Franciscans for all his many contributions to the city, in 1941, 66 years after his passing, the people of San Francisco erected an obelisk in his memory. And there you have it, Billy Ralston and the Bonanza Kings, today in the Daily Dose. If you enjoyed this short educational video, consider giving the filmmakers a YouTube super thanks from as little as $1, so that you too can feed the filmmakers who feed your brain.